Here we go. We're live. It actually worked. A special live episode of Seattle Overload with 13 viewers so far. Very exciting. And also exciting news, the Seahawks lost a preseason game. No, exciting news. They have a starting quarterback, or do they? We'll kind of dive into that tonight. And 5:30 a.m. Lovely stuff. I don't know. Did Geno... The problem is, I think, optics-wise, Geno didn't necessarily win the competition, like his drive to open the game. He didn't throw it away, but also it wasn't as spectacular as you'd like. And really what happened tonight was Drew Lock kind of lost it completely. Like I said before, for him to actually go and win the competition, he really needs to outplay Geno in this game because it was kind of already decided with the COVID stuff, missing all of that deal. And then his costly sack fumble. However, I don't know. Where are you guys?
Well, I'm glad that Pete Carroll didn't waste our time. I'm glad he just came out tonight and said it. Because we all
volunteered it.
Yeah, we all knew where this was heading. I mean, even before this game, honestly, I think we all knew where this was heading. But certainly after tonight's game, Drew Lock did not do himself any favors tonight. Certainly. Griff, how did you feel?
I think it could have. I think there was a possibility for Locke to keep himself alive with this game. Like he could. I mean, let's say Geno throws an interception on his one drive that he was given, and say Locke just lights it up the whole time. Then, like, what do you do at that point, right? Then the next 2 weeks in practice matter. Then you probably give Locke more reps at the ones and see how he does in practice. Then give Geno the reps with the ones and then see how they do and take it from there. But I think that Geno earned it though. I think they really value what they saw in the Steelers game and the Bears game. And they clearly knew what they feel like they need to know with him by virtue of only giving him, one drive this game. And that's commentary right there. But they were clearly wanting to leave the door open either out of principle or genuinely believing that Locke could take them farther this year with Geno. Now that still could happen. We don't know what happens as the season plays out. Does Geno get benched? Does Locke get thrown in there? I mean, that's totally possible. But I still think Geno earned it. I don't think it was he won by default. He could have lost it, but I think that he did what he needed to do. So we'll dive into that, some of those plays that we think pushed him over the edge. But it's kind of a combination of the two. I mean, it's like that analogy or a joke, two lawyers in a forest, and then they run into a bear. And you cannot run a grizzly bear. That's not what you do if that happens. And then one lawyer takes maybe. But then one lawyer takes out a pair of tennis shoes from his suitcase, and the other lawyer looks at him and goes, "You're crazy. You cannot run a bear." He's like, I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you. Geno outran Drew from the bear, but at the same time, I think he was running far enough anyway to get to safety where Pete can say, "Okay, you're what what you do, the offense can use and can be functional, assuming X, Y, and Z." And I don't think we'll get into it. I don't think it's just the safer pick. I think he's the better quarterback. I don't think it's just like Pete only sees the game in terms of turnovers and moon balls. I think there's a whole lot more going on there. But yeah.
Pete's
I think
press conference.
I was just going to say, I think fundamentally and IQ wise, like, I think I agree with you, Griff, on that Geno's just far ahead of Drew right now. You see it. I mean, staring down cornerbacks, throwing directly in their direction. Like, that's just, you can't have that right now. And plus, with Pete Carroll's definitely not going to have any of that.
Right. Go ahead, Matty.
Well, just Pete's press conference as well. And also for the comment, I did see it saying I interrupt people. That's because it's a transatlantic podcast and there's a delay. And I'm sorry that I was so rude. But Pete's press conference with Geno Smith and Drew
Apology accepted.
Apology
interrupted
not
you.
accepted as the person that was rudely interrupted.
So we have
Very
the American delegation, even though
Mhm.
Ty has American citizenship, he's currently a Canadian
Mhm.
resident. The American delegation has accepted the apology. Canada is still up in the air. We'll see.
Mhm.
Um,
It's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
But Pete's press conference with Drew Lock, okay, uh, he clearly is still a fan of the potential that Lock has, and we've said on this podcast how Lock probably has the higher ceiling than Geno, and I think that's why I can empathize with fans who are disappointed that Lock hasn't won the job because we kind of know what Geno is, although we can kind of get into that as well. I'm not necessarily sure we do. I think his potential may be certainly higher than what we thought it was, watching the disastrous Jets days. Anyway, but in Pete's press conference, he also says that, Geno gives us the chance to be playing great football right off the bat. And that's, it's exactly what you're saying, Griffin. It's what we've seen. Ty, when you're saying that he looks like the more polished dude, like he does, and Pete mentioned how he knows their stuff as well, and he understands the offense basically, and you can see that. And I think also it's important to note that the preseason, the play calling, the game planning, it is not it's not game planning to win. It's game planning for evaluative purposes, and particularly on offense, it's very watered down and kind of messy. And like even in Geno's sack, right? Like I don't necessarily think you call that in a real game.
I
Like
mean, I hated the play call. That
yeah, let's
doesn't
get
mean.
into that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean we can't, critique Geno for what there's to critique. Now, okay, before we get into it, I wonder if now we're jumping the gun a little bit. I think to an extent, Dallas probably in preseason has shown a little bit of a propensity to show cover 3 and then play Tampa 2, like roll into Tampa 2 post snap. He was calling plays like he was literally setting each quarterback up for failure a little bit. And I think he wanted to see how each one reacted to it. And Geno passed that test, even on that sack, in the sense of, okay, pre-snap, he read what the defense wants him to read. There's really not a whole lot you can do about that. But then post-snap, he sees what the defense is doing to him, and it's a half-field read. He doesn't have something to progress to on that one. So really the play's dead immediately unless he thinks he can throw a fade shot, and I don't think that was possible there. We'll know when we watch the tape. But
yeah, I think he considered it. We'll never know until we get the all-22 because we can't see the off the field, off the film, off the screen safety. But I think he considered it. But with it being a short drop, like what do you call that? Like a 2 and a hitch or like a 1 and a hitch?
it was
but,
like a one. It was like a 1 plus a shuffle a little
like
bit just to get a.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a 3-step concept right there.
It's quick game, and the angle and the kind of body throwing position to then slot that into the honey hole, especially if the half safety's crept over the top, as we will expect to see on the tape. It's not really there. Now, I like the way he kind of stared it down and didn't get rid of the football? No, but then I also think he thought he could slide behind cross, and on that occasion he couldn't.
Yeah.
But the fact is he didn't throw it. He could have thrown it slightly earlier, but that would have had to been bang, bang, like straight out. And then the fact he didn't throw it, I mean, good, because that would have been a pick 6. And then, Lock's contrast.
In terms of like opportunity lost, you're losing more if you took that sack on 2nd and 10 than if you took that sack on 2nd and 20, because 2nd and 20 are already horrific circumstances. That play would only set up a 3rd and 15.
And
now
also,
that doesn't mean we can't view it in that moment, but I mean, yeah.
Well, and then he got them back into field goal range, and Myers hit his 53-yarder.
True, that's true.
If he'd knocked them out of field goal range entirely and hadn't got it back, then you're like, that's poor.
In all likelihood, we're still probably talking about a field goal here. But so I was making a big deal about how, aside from where he tripped on Homer, he hadn't taken an early down sack yet through 4 quarters and now this one drive. So that's his first, bunny ears, real early down sack he's taken.
And 2nd and 20 is not not
it's
as
still
neutral as an early down. Like the
it's
defense is playing, especially coming out in shotgun. Like you're playing pass basically.
right now. As much as we'll get into how we kind of like how whatever word you want to use, functional, serviceable, maybe good even, he has been in dropback scenarios, at least in preseason. If that continues into the regular season, great. But if he's taking those sacks on 1st and 10 or 2nd and 4, then like that's something you got to like confront, because you can't, the gun offense needs to be, you can't, I mean, we know exactly how many sacks would be permissible and what wouldn't. We have Jared Goff's 4 years with the Rams because they're running the same structure of an offense now. We have his sack rates to use as a benchmark. Geno Smith's sack rate, early down gun, and granted only 3.5 games last year, was lower than two of Jared Goff's Rams years in gun early down. So that sack rate, he was getting rid of the ball early down gun. Now 3rd down is a different beast, with his propensity. I mean, he's athletic, not as athletic as Drew Lock, but Geno's has mobility, right? If the play isn't there, if there's no play to be made, then extend. Sure, if you're outside of field goal range, see if you can make something happen. But if you're in field goal range and it's 3rd down and there's not something there, then get rid of the ball. But like on 2nd and 10, you can still stay alive and convert. So don't take a sack and make it 3rd and 15, make it 3rd and 10 and see if you can get something going. As lo and behold, he had an awesome 3rd down conversion to Tyler Lockett. He can do something in 3rd and 11. He had probably the single best play of any Seahawk offense or defense last week against the Bears on 3rd and 15 or was it 3rd and 15? What was it? 3rd and 5, actually. No. It's 3rd and 5, but it was to Fred Swain 20 yards downfield and he dropped it. But that's, to me, the best play of not just the quarterbacks, but of any of them this preseason. So like the sacks of what I'm saying, to get to the point, is that that's something we have to really watch for.
So Griff, we saw a lot of dig routes in this game, a lot of successful dig routes in this game
from Drew Lock too.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. Derek Young actually had a pretty decent day, and all. Kind of wonder if he's surpassed Freddie Swain. I think Penny Hart has, but
yeah,
I'm not so sure. My take on the receiver position is that it will just be veterans, but
yeah,
I realistically, if you're talking wide receiver 5 and you've got, say, for instance, because Penny Hart had a good game today, so say you've got Penny Hart, Metcalf, Lockett, Eskridge, right? Because you're not cutting a 3rd round pick from 2021, no matter how rusty he may be. Then that 5th guy on the roster, you really should be valuing special teams over that. But also stylistically, what receivers am I talking about there? Well, I'm talking about smaller dudes. Like I'm talking about like kind of nippy slots other than Metcalf. So it would therefore make sense to carry Young and his bigger frame and, kind of like a Metcalf light, than it would Swain. But then, Young is raw. He's probably more likely to get on the practice squad. But I'd have to go back and watch special teams tape because I think that is the ultimate decider here.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, I'm also interested to see what they do on the waiver wire, because I'm not entirely sold on Marquise Goodwin making the team yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not entirely sold on Penny Hart yet. I'm not entirely sold on Freddie Swain. I'm not entirely sold on Derek Young. So like
we don't know about like Goodwin because we haven't seen him.
Card.
Yeah, I don't think K Johnson will make it.
So
but
they might, tied it to your point, they might have to cut Goodwin just for special team's sake.
Yeah.
It's hard to, because it would be easier. Well, I think they go 6 receivers, but I wouldn't be shocked if just for week 1 they go 7 and go light at running back, and then after week 1 switch that around, because Walker still may not be ready.
They have a history of doing that as well.
Yeah, right. They always do like week ones. It's just they're just trying to game who they can sneak on the practice squad and who not. They want the dust to settle around the league before they make their final moves so that other teams aren't primed to snipe a guy, something like that. Like Derek Young is just won't catch the ball, but everything up until the catch point, he's looking the part. So with the guy with his traits, and given that, like, what was he, a 6th round pick or a 7th round pick? Seventh round pick. I mean, I think you just take any positive there and hope that he's doing well in special teams.
Some cope with him as well is that he's coming from an offense which only was like more conventional in the sense it wasn't like a wing T style. I think it was only more conventional like in his last year. So his exposure is going to be down in that sense, but he's also coming from a small conference, and so he's probably being covered tighter. That's a kind of copy take. But I want to get back to the quarterback thing because that is kind of the major news, and that Lockett hit from Geno. If we just recap or finish recapping Geno's only drive of the game, that was kind of a glimpse to the future. I think of like, oh, this is what Geno can do with Lockett and Metcalf and receivers who can catch the ball. And that was a full field read, right into the honey hole. He opened backside, went front side. Pass protection was great, and
it was a 7-step concept.
Got it done on 3rd and 11, like you said, and 7-step. And so, his 3 incompletions were all drops, and you know what, Griff? Like we said on the pod last time, what happens when his bootleg is curtailed and they blitzed into the teeth of a bootleg and he threw it. I think he's listening to our podcast because he threw it off his like upper body stuff to Young. And it was a tough catch for Young, like to call it a drop his, there was tight coverage, but he threw it and it was nasty as well because Lockett had run an out route and then, Young was coming across the field, so it's quite a tight window. It was ballsy to do that, and he did it. So
I actually, my heart skipped a beat when I saw it. I thought, oh no, is this potentially the first pick or really truly bad throw into traffic? But sure enough, it was a tight throw, but he did it, and especially like historically, that's where you see the most variance with him is when he's throwing the ball on the run. And we don't have a huge sample size, but he has the throw on the scramble to Noah Fant in the Steelers game, which was on the money, perfect. And then this one, which was right where it needed to be. So, okay, that's good. Some consistency. Now, it makes those 2 things still makes it super perplexing that he didn't throw that crosser to Derek Young when he was on the boot. Against the Bears. That was really the main thing we dinged him for, right? When he ended up just pulling it down and running out of bounds. So, but anyway, that's good to see because the offense is going to do about 50 of those. You know what I mean? So like, that's good that he is making those because some of them are tough. Some of them are not easy. I mean, people joke about Kirk Cousins like he kind of is like a feeble, weak little boy out there, but some of his best throws that he makes are when he's got a boot contained barreling right down on him, and then he throws it over a linebacker as his head turned. He did it to the Seahawks even. Yeah, but he has one of them against the Seahawks. Granted, he has one. He threw an interception to KJ, but it's like you have to be able to make those throws if this offense is going to be good. At least that's part of it. That's a piece. That's a box you have to check. So Geno so far is, I mean, again, small sample size, but that's a good throw. So, yeah.
To Ty, Drew Lock, what is there anything that can be salvaged here? Was it all on him?
Well, I don't know what was on him, what was not. I mean, I think the one interception that he threw, and I think we all know which one I'm talking about here. I think we know what happened there. But yeah, I mean, we saw, kind of the everything that makes up Drew Lock and everything we had heard and everything we had seen from his time in Denver. There's, a lot of upside there with the arm, the throw to Penny Hart, that was nice. The digs to Tariq Young, those were nice. But but then there's also like outside of the two balls that actually got intercepted, he threw at least a couple other interceptable passes in this game, I felt. And so there's just too much risk with that.
On that point, Ty, like he threw interceptable passes against the Steelers as well. There was 2, and it's kind of like that's who he is. I don't think you can change. Like with all the talk of that, it would be nice if you could, and all the potential and the fact it didn't quite pan out the way they'd planned for him. But I don't actually I think he is who he is at this point. And the first pick, I'd be interested in your guys' view. I agree that Eskridge should have worked back to the football. I think good read. Like it's against man, it's a hitch or versus off man basically. But then to throw it late, that it's the NFL. Like you can't throw that late. That was how the defender made the play.
I don't think he should have thrown on the inside hip either, considering where he should have been outside hip and earlier. So even if I wonder when I thought it was Eskridge's fault, I wonder if there was like a landmark miscommunication where he actually thought the receiver is going to be in a different spot, not that he thought Eskridge would come back to the ball, because that doesn't always happen for those of us. That's why I need to see it again, because I didn't even get a good angle on broadcast either. But yeah, we got a absolute microcosm of Drew Lock's entire football essence in one game, which I didn't think, to this point. And I was disappointed that the bad plays were that bad, because it seemed like he was being a little bit more careful, a little bit more clean, like with everything that we had up until this point, like, from practice, just kind of generally what's been talking about the Steelers game, even the mock game, which is kind of doesn't really count. But it does, because it's still practice. But I didn't think it would be that bad. Obviously the positives are like, man, his upper body can be totally disconnected from what his lower body's doing, and he can rifle a perfect throw in there when you're not expecting it. Like, that's awesome. He actually wasn't even, he was a little inaccurate on one of the deep ball throws, maybe inaccurate on the second interception or the first interception, but in the third.
And the young DPI, I thought he actually overthrew the tag.
Might have overthrown it. Yeah. I'll give him. I'll cut him some slack on that one, just because we can't say for sure if he hadn't fallen down. If you're gonna miss though to Tariq Young, miss far, because he's super fast, right? So, but like one of my biggest criticisms of Locke has been his accuracy variance. For as strong as an arm he has, he can make a perfect throw, and then he can make a horrible throw accuracy wise. And I think for the most part, because he was attempting so many deep throws, I think for the most part he actually was accurate. So I'm not going to ding him there too much. But yeah, like you see the positives with him, but then you also see the negatives. And the negatives aren't just, the interceptions aren't just bad because, you turned the ball over. It's how you get from A to Z, Z being the interception, and everything that happened in between there. Those are demonstrative of not knowing what the defense is doing, not having a process, kind of freaking out. And then those moments aren't just snapshots in time. They're indicative of other things that he probably isn't doing well, that we won't really know until we can watch the tape. But like in the Steelers game, Drew played fine. He played fine, but he missed some stuff downfield reads wise that Geno didn't. And like, this is kind of that thread continuing to be a thread. It's still playing out into this game in spectacularly bad fashion. So I thought he was a little bit more on top of it. When it comes to that stuff, he was more accurate, like I said, than I thought maybe he would be. I thought he would show more variance there, but I don't know. But it's still not over for him. Like Pete said, Geno's the starter right now, but we all, if, all ifs and buts, but if Geno plays really bad, we're going to see Drew Lock, so it's still not completely over for him. But to this point, it hasn't been great.
Yeah, Pete in the press conference made a real point of that. Yeah, saying Drew, like we might need him basically. And honestly, his announcement of Geno being the starter, like I don't know, I'd have to go back and watch when he announced Russell being the starter, but I don't think there's quite the same level of excitement. And really, like as I said, like Drew's upside, like that would be the more exciting, thing if that had happened because the potential you'd think would be there. I don't know. It's unfortunate. I feel bad for Locke. The real thing for me is, that Pittsburgh, the sack fumble, the pre-snap mistake, the post-snap mistake, and then to come back in this game and throw one of the worst interceptions I've seen, where it's just like this ain't how a quarterback plays. Like you can't. I don't know what I just don't know. But I think he just misjudged the angles. Maybe thought Penny Hart's his dude. He can go and make this play, but like he threw it right into a cover two corner. It was pretty obvious to that side it was cover two, and it was a stick combination where the primary read, the three receiver, the innermost receiver running the stick route is open.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I mean
it's a total breakdown of whatever his entire process. So yeah.
Man, this Mariners game is crazy right now.
Is it still bottom of the 8th?
Dude, Mitch Haniger just made this insane slide. He was like beat out by a mile trying to stretch out a double, and he made an insane slide, like mixing up his hands, and I don't think he got tagged. So they got a leadoff runner at second here in the bottom of the ninth. Anyway, all right. This is a Seahawks podcast. Podcast. Let's get refocused here. All right. So I think we're opening up to questions. All right. So we got a few questions in the chat. Camden wants us to go deep on the offensive line.
What is that emoji?
That is
that drool?
Yeah, that's suggestive, Camden.
First of all, what's up, Camden? She's the number one fullback enthusiast on the planet. And it's a cruel joke that Nick Ballor's been moved to linebacker. Pete Carroll did that specifically to spite Camden. Just had to throw that out there. Now, questioned how the O-line did. Man, they're really good. They did not play. Really disappointing. We didn't even get to see them for like one snap against Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, who Dorrance Armstrong has a heartbeat. I think he's still on their team. But like that would have been great. Like, you know what I mean? Especially the follow up going up against Robert Quinn. But yeah, so they just dominated. Now it was another.
Sam Williams had a good game.
Sam Williams, true.
He's had a good preseason too, so I think that was a decent enough test.
Yeah, but like that's true. But the first half though, when most of the ones were in, they're just playing really well. They're playing up to their talent level. The interior's rock solid. Like nothing. There wasn't a really bad loss. When there was heat off the edge, the quarterbacks are doing a pretty good job of stepping up in the pocket and giving the tackle a chance. Then the tackles were running it off, with as best as they could, given like how maybe the rush started. We have to go back and really watch it. That's when you see, maybe some leakage here and there that you didn't on broadcast. But hey, it didn't look like a disaster, did it? Just,
No.
going off vibes. So
leakage prevented, which is always good. And
right.
Abraham Lucas, more pancakes. I cannot wait. I'll have to do a video on him because I firstly was very rude about him pre-draft because we hadn't seen him do stuff like that, and he's proved me completely wrong. I'm an idiot. And pancaking dudes left, right, and center, but also pass pro solid. Charles Cross probably. I mean, everyone will focus on the sack, which wasn't really on him. They're protecting for quick game. The ball didn't come out. Geno kind of ran into it. Like if he's, and the rest of the offensive line had a few things going on there, which prevented Geno from being able to step up and, work Cross's block like that. But Cross had a great game, super aware. And then, the interior looks so solid. So, exciting times for the offensive line, I think. And, all of these projections saying, "Oh, it's rubbish," and look at these 2 rookie offensive tackles. Well, yeah, it will be interesting. I would say they'll have some, moments of naivety and perhaps inexperience showing, but also their ceilings are ridiculous. They're both athletically talented, and they both can play football. It looks like so.
Yeah, they're freaks. They have 2 freaks. Now, what's especially cool about Lucas is that the guy that he's competing with is also looked pretty darn good. And he doesn't just look good in preseason. He has about 6 games worth of solid starter tape. So that's even more, that lends even more significance, or suggests more significance to how well Lucas has played, because it seems like he's the starter now. He won the job, and the team is probably pretty firm on what they think about Curhan, right? So they're giving the nod to Lucas, knowing exactly who Curhan is. So that's another sign of, hey, Lucas is good.
Yeah, I know they like to get reps for Curhan, like right tackle, but also I think the fact, and they like to get reps for people in each spot on the offensive line. But the fact that Curhan's was getting so many right guard snaps, that they're really trying to find a spot for him because they like him, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and they're with Gabe Jackson's recent injury history. Not that we're
he
ever
needs to
thinking
do it. Yeah,
Curhan might slide in there at some point. Obviously, Haynes would probably be the first man up, if not outright winning the competition when Lewis comes back, right? But who knows there.
Very excited to watch the offensive line, because also Austin Blythe has looked really good so far. So yeah.
One thing I would say actually is the run blocking only went for 3.9 yards per carry. So I'm interested in why that was, because they have been more dominant in other weeks. But I imagine the first string offensive line has been playing a bit later into games in the past 2 preseason outings. So that's probably what it is.
All right, so got Jackson here. Jackson's a regular over at my my live stream at Control the Zone. Can we talk about how crap our receivers are at catching the freaking ball? We talked a little bit about this, but yes, let's talk about it. There were a couple more drops today.
So we'll talk about how bad it is, but let's frame this with some positivity. All the drops are coming from receivers that are anywhere between the 5th and 9th best receivers on the roster. The top 4 receivers have barely been thrown to. When they have caught the ball. That's the top 4 are Lockett, Metcalf, however you want to order them, Goodwin, Eskridge. So there's your top 4, right? So now it is really disappointing that Swain has just, I don't know what's going on, because I still thought he was a guy that you can do something he was productive actually with Smith in one of those games, and he didn't really have a drops issue last year. So where is this regression coming from? Are they maybe putting him in context where he isn't meant to be? Do you need to throttle his scope of responsibilities down so he can just kind of do what he's better at? I don't know. But yeah, Derek Young, what do we just chalk that up to him being super?
Well, the other positive really is that the catches today were tough.
That's fair.
Not through poor quarterbacking.
Just tough spots. Yeah.
The tough spots. You'd want your receiver to catch it, but it's not like an outright oof. So like I said, previously, I do think it's probably an exposure thing where you just need to get used to catching in traffic in the moment, and ultimately that can only improve.
Yeah. Disley had a drop, though. I didn't see it. It was a long throw to the flat, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was going to go for 1 yard.
Right.
Yeah, he had a guy beaten right on him, so it wasn't happening anyway. He kind of turned his head. I think he just kind of took his eyes off the ball there. Just kind of turned his head to look at the defender and just went out of his hand. But it wasn't going to do anything anyway. All right, so yeah, I think that's a great point that you made, though, Griff, about the. Let's talk about the actual quality of receiver here before getting too excited about it. This isn't DK Metcalf. This isn't Tyler Lockett. This isn't D. Eskridge. D. Eskridge, by the way, had a decent game. He had a nice catch in the back of the end zone. Too bad that he wasn't able to get both feet down, but that was nice.
I mean, I've said this before. I think just pure hands, like if you did like a competition in shorts and stuff, I think Eskridge has the best pure hands on the team. He can pluck things. He just has an incredibly small radius. So that's one thing. Like you can gun a slant to him in a tight window, and it doesn't even have to be like perfectly on target. And he'll just like, you know, suck it up, like wherever it is, like a magnetized to it. That's one thing he legit has going for him. And he's gonna find himself in contexts where even if he's not making a difference downfield, like he's just a receiver in the progression running like an under route or something, he's gonna get the ball, he's gonna catch it, and then like, well, at least, you know, we know he's good for run after the catch. So he's gonna have impact at least there. But Matty, like you tweeted, it's gonna probably lean toward the gadgety stuff. But if you're going to be a gadget player, hey, have good hands at least. So,
yeah. All right. Let's, Amy Holmes asks, are you all actually looking forward to these upcoming games? I have to say, I'm not feeling very interested. So how are we feeling after 3 preseason games? How are we feeling? Like, have our feelings changed coming out of the preseason as to where they were heading into the preseason at all?
I don't know, because I think Geno is probably, we talked about this in the last podcast episode, but Geno is probably slightly better than I thought he would be, but also I still question his ability to finish, and like so there's only one way to find out. But also the defense, like, you know, we haven't seen it. Like, it's preseason scheme. Preseason scheme for defense is pretty useful because there's sort of like a base that you can't not run in the preseason unless you're doing something crazy. You know, there's routes that are visible. But the defense really just sums up how important safeties are in this. Like, the defense has played well when the safeties have played well, and the defense has struggled when the safeties have been questionable or missing tackles. And having Diggs and Adams in the game rather than, you know, a struggling Marquise Blair or the lower strings, that matters.
Wow.
Same thing for the inside linebackers not having Brooks in there and the questionable depth there. So in terms of actual real football, I am looking forward to it because I think the defense is going to be really good. I'm pretty bullish on that. I know Griffin is too. And then offensive wise, I think, you know, Geno can manage a game. He's shown that he can process well. He's shown he knows where to go with the football. He hasn't made mistakes. He shouldn't turn the ball over too often. It's just about not getting him in too many pure drop back situations for me. You have to just kind of stick with the kind of running the ball and under center run action stuff as much as possible. And I think, you know, with the offensive line, which you spoke about, with the running backs and the run game, I do think Seattle should be in a good position to do that. Now, I mean, we'll find out. But I mean, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I'm looking forward to seeing that play out. I am optimistic.
Yeah. I totally get not being excited for this season. Like I totally get it. But so yeah, first on defense, I am legitimately excited to see them because even if they play really well this year and the Seahawks are still bad, that matters a lot for the big picture still, because this is still kind of, you know, a reset in some ways. So it matters for 2023. As for their chances this year, if you know, winning football games is like any sport, a simple like plus minus thing. Are you scoring more points than you're giving up? Then it comes down to me like, well, how good can the defense be? Can they crack top 10? The efficiency metrics are the efficiency metrics were not kind to them last year. They were like below average, like right in there below average. But then opponent points per drive in the regular season only, they were tied for 10th with the Arizona Cardinals. Now you can unpack that as we have, but point being is they're really not that far away from cracking the top 10 in both points and efficiency. Now, if you have a top 10, let's say, just for sake of discussion, so you have the 8th best defense and you are giving up, the 8th fewest points in the league. If you have a bottom 5 offense, probably doesn't matter. If you have the 20 to 25th best offense, maybe closer to 20, now all of a sudden you might be like one of those, just under 500 teams. If you start approaching an average offense, if you are, clustered in there at the median, then all of a sudden, you got a ball game here. So I don't think that is the most likely scenario, but I think that it's plausible. I think the most likely scenario is that they're right around 20, 21, 22 best offense. Now, that's decidedly below average. You can even call that bad. That probably is bad, but that's not a disaster team. I think that's their baseline. They have a lot of pass catching talent. Like, it's not just the top 2 receivers. Noah Fant, even though people aren't super high on him right now, he's still a talent. He's still can be a target sponge. He's a difference maker at tight end. If the offensive line blocks the way it has in preseason and the regular season, or even like 80% of that, the offense, even with Geno, it at that point falls on Shane Waldron's shoulders if they can't be like, just on the other side of top 20, I think. Now maybe Geno just falls apart and regresses, and then it's just they have a quarterback problem. There's nothing you can do about that. But if we can only translate what we're seeing and projecting it forward, I don't think something around the 18th, 19th best offense, 20th best offense is totally out of the question. So at that point, I think you can get excited because that means that's a team that can hang in there with just about any team except for the absolute contenders. And then at least for a viewing perspective on a weekly basis, it can still be very entertaining and stuff. So that's where I frame my excitement. So
I think Geno, in a way, adds some floor to this team. I don't think that it's going to be a disaster. This is not the Dan Orlovsky Lions we're talking about here. There's still a lot of talent on this team. This is how I felt going into the preseason. This is how I feel now coming out of it. I feel the exact same that, this is not going to be a 2-15 team. I don't think that's happening. Really, anyway, because I think they're going to be able to run the ball efficiently. Then they're going to be able to pass a little bit. I think we've seen that from Geno, that there are going to be at least flashes. I think we can count on at least flashes out of Geno in this offense. And so with that, I think it's going to be, at the very least, I think the floor for this team is like 5 or 6 wins. And, anything other than that is kind of a bonus. But I'm not really focused on overall team success. I mean, I would love to see them, win a bunch of games this year, and get in the mix there for the wild card or what have you. But I'm more so, focused on the individual performances, development, the guys that need to take that next step. So when you get into 2023, when things are going to get more real again, and this team probably looks for a different quarterback potentially, or whatever they need to finish this thing off. I just kind of want to see, how that all comes about. I want to see, guys like Darryl Taylor and Boye Mafe, take the next step. I want to see Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant take the next step. I want to, see maybe if Cody Barton is actually something that can be here long term. Like, that's what I'm really going to be focused on this year. I'm really excited to see how all that stuff plays out. But I also get it from a fan's perspective, from a Seahawks fan's perspective. They just traded, the face of the franchise, right? And whether we agree or not with how that all went down, that's pretty depressing, right? Like, it's pretty gutting. Like even for me, like, kind of being over the Russ situation, kind of glad that it was over and done with, excited to see where Pete and John take this thing from there. Seeing that first preseason game in Seattle and Russell Wilson isn't a member of the Seahawks. That's weird. That's really weird,
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I totally get if people are just, not at all interested. But I do think that there's going to be a lot of stuff to be excited about, to be intrigued by this year. And I'm just kind of looking forward to going along for the ride.
Yeah. So really quick, if we just think about the defense from this game, and I guess the takeaways are, again, sort of my optimism for the season in that not many of the actual real defense played, especially in this game. They really scaled it back. And notably, Josh Jones was absent. And to me, that kind of signifies that he's wrapped up the third safety job. And we expect him to play quite a bit more three safety packages, be it dime or even like a big nickel kind of look. He's beat out Ryan Neal for that, capitalized on him being injured, and beat out Blair. Marquise Blair's spot on the roster is probably in danger because, as we've said, he didn't fit at nickel, especially in the new defense, and he's looked patchy at safety along with his tackling issues. So, you can only carry so many DBs. And if you sort of go through the list and guys like Mike Jackson, who had a great game, 3 passes defense, you start thinking, is there room for Blair? That'd be tough, but it's last year of his contract. And yeah, anyway, any guys stand out to you on defense?
I mean, Myles Adams dominated this game. Like,
yeah,
that first quarter was stunning. Like, Myles Adams, like, took a roster spot and then some. With that, I thought
I don't want to get too excited, but like, if we are to believe what we are seeing, this guy is going to be a legit impact player. And he showed flashes last preseason. He showed flashes when he got those reps against the Rams, and I think one other game. Explosive, skilled, quick, strength.
You think like nickel interior rush kind of dude, like a sub package 3 tech, you think, or do you think early downs as well?
At least for now, you don't need to cycle him in and out because Woods and Puna and Mona are going to be, and Shelby are going to be eating up hundreds and hundreds of snaps. You don't, like, right now he's like, I mean, he's already going to be the second guy in those contexts you just mentioned behind Shelby Harris, because Shelby Harris is the best interior pass rusher on the team, but he might be pushing Quentin Jefferson for snaps. And I haven't disliked what we've seen from Jefferson, you know, but
Adams Robinson on the Tex game where Adams running games in general where it just shows how quick he is very cool.
Yeah.
And he had half a sack tonight, 2 quarterback hits and 5 tackles. So
was Alton okay, by the way? I was kind of like half watching around that time.
He banged his knee on the turf, and Pete said they need to get it checked out. So
that's unfortunate. From Dr. Carroll's son, you got a knee bang. That could mean anything. Mm-hmm. He may not have a knee at the moment. So
he banged his knee pretty good.
Yeah, banged it pretty good. Pete looked at the X-rays. So one thing that that'll be huge for this season is it will be spiritual when we get all 3 of the undrafted free agents out there in Bear or 3-4 at the same time, between Mona at nose and Puna and Adams at 3 technique or 4, whatever.
Indeed.
And that will be a good front. That will be a good interior too. So
that's nasty, yeah. And to that point, Griff, you're saying basically that he's beat out Collier, who hasn't played this preseason with an elbow injury. Clint Hurt was kind of ominous talking about Collier earlier this week, saying, do
they IR him?
If you're in the tub, it's hard to make the club, which that's a good quote.
I hope they IR him just so he can keep his paycheck.
I think that's what it makes sense to, right? Because then if suddenly you get a dearth of, you get massive injuries up front, like hopefully not, but it's NFL, it's football, then at least you've got a guy who and but
don't have to
last year of his contract too, so that's tough for Collier. But Adams has beat him out, and the thing I'm really interested about is cornerback, like perimeter cornerback. So what is going on there? Because Sidney Jones is still in concussion protocol. Pete said he'll be back in 2 weeks' time, but he was the theorized left cornerback. Then Pete says that Tariq Woolen's going to play a lot of football at right corner, but then Mike Jackson's had the best camp of anyone, and had 3 passes defense today, quite a few tackles.
And
I don't know who's starting.
Kobe is
This is like the
seemingly
complete opposite from last year.
right.
By the way, like
Right.
now they have too
Right.
many corners.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year they didn't even have corners at this point. They had to go scalping people.
And they've like Kobe, I still think he factors it outside long term, but like he's like what, just a nickel for 2022's sake, right?
Yeah. He's not in this
So
discussion, I don't think.
he's not even in the perimeter corner discussion anymore.
And Trey Brown hopefully can still get back. That looks
Right.
a bit unfortunate, but hopefully.
Right. Yeah, that really sucks for him. Yeah, man. What are they? Who are we just assuming Sid will be fine because it's still 16 days, right? Do we assume?
And then is Tariq on the other side?
Or is it Artie?
Oh yeah, that's the guy I forgot to mention. So that was
Yeah.
weird as well because Mike Jackson, tellingly, in my opinion, got the snaps over Artie at left corner. Then Artie Burns comes in for drive 3. And did you see if he got injured? Because he then left very after that. I think he had one series in left, and then nothing has been said about him being injured. And Carroll didn't mention it. But then where was he? And then Mike Jackson plays all the way to the end and just balls out the whole time in a variety of techniques. But yeah, I guess, I mean, it doesn't suit Seattle to tell Russell Wilson and company who is the starting 2.
True.
If I had to guess, it'd be Sidney Jones and Tariq Woolen. But that's so harsh on Mike Jackson, especially after today, especially after what Carroll said about him and his playmaking. But the certainty is, as I said earlier, he will make the roster. So good for him.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I was not thinking Mike Jackson was factoring into this corner situation like this.
That being said, you know, we said not last week, a few episodes ago, you said, Griff, how he impressed last season when he came in, and he did.
Yeah, but I mean, like headed into, my brain was thinking, you know, Sidney Jones and Trey Brown, and then it was clear Trey Brown wasn't coming back, so it was okay, Sidney and Artie, and then Kobe and Tariq are promising, but just let them be depth like the way Byron Maxwell was and eventually became a starter, you know, just build them up. But now they might be pressed into action way sooner than we thought, and you still have the vets, you know, but they can still factor. And now Mike Jackson's here, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here too." So I don't know. We'll see it play out. I guess what we haven't really determined is who is the starting nickel between Coleman and Kobe. And I didn't really gauge from this game. I need to go back and watch them closely, as I know you will too. You guys will, but
yeah, need the tape, but also I think Coleman probably until he loses it. I don't think Kobe's been able to show enough, not through his own fault, but like just not quite, but close, very close. And sort of the thing where if Coleman's getting roasted, you just, you know, you go, hey, take a breather. Let's get Kobe in. Like you could definitely rely on Kobe to get, you know, snaps. So that's a cool situation to be in. And they're kind of similar body types in the sense that, like, if there's a guy who's 6'3" in the slot, you will just play big nickel. But you know, so you can't really play matchups in that sense, but still.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Chicken God in the chat said Coleman could be a surprise cut, and I mean, I said that at the start because of, I mean, one, the physical decline at nickel's so high, like covering two egos in the slot is very difficult, especially when you're starting to get older in NFL terms. But yeah, he could be cut. I don't know. I do think there will be a surprise cut or two, and I guess unless you guys have got anything else, we will be back after the cut downs and practice squad signings, which is on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we can record Wednesday, perhaps, or Thursday. But
do you guys want to have one wild surprise cut prediction?
And it can't be Coleman because Chicken God has that.
Yeah, that's Chicken Gods. We got to be original. We think.
Would Marquise Blair be a surprise at this point?
No. But I mean,
it would
that is a good one.
It's still kind of bold though for them to do that. It would make sense, but still bold, right? Because Neil's still hurt.
What if they cut Drew?
They won't.
I could see that
Okay,
Not-
but
not-
what if Jimmy Garoppolo gets released?
That's awkward. I think there's a time and a place for that. I don't think you do that because it immediately undermines Geno and you've just given him the job. But like, if it's like 4 weeks in, but then
And-
I don't know what the timeline is for when San Francisco actually has to make a decision there.
'Cause I
also-
saw a report, and I
Yeah.
don't know how true it is, but I saw a report today that says that they're planning on cutting him on Tuesday.
Okay.
Interesting.
And they expect him, and apparently there's people in the 49ers building that expect him to immediately sign with Seattle.
Great. This is all worthless then. What are we doing here?
Yeah. I just feel like Jimmy is such oil and water with what Seattle's trying to do.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah.
I mean, it lines up because, Shanahan, Waldron, McVay,
Sure.
Shanahan, but like
Yeah.
DK Metcalf, I mean, if people think Geno won't push the ball downfield, which he will, Jimmy definitely won't. So it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Oh, Camden, she had a great shout. Gabe Jackson.
Mm.
There
There's
you
a
go.
surprise cut.
There you go. Because
Maybe a trade. He didn't play tonight. Didn't
A
suit
trade,
up.
yeah.
What's going on there?
yeah, he's got that. They owe him all that money. They don't save any money till next year. So, but that would further make him a surprise.
Freddie Swain?
Freddie Swain is a good one.
I
Is
don't.
that-
I need to watch special teams. I'm not sick enough to have done
all right.
that.
So we all need to draw a line in the sand. Who do we think our surprise cut will be? I'm gonna
Well,
go.
You haven't given one.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to go as I try to think of all the people on the team really quick. I'm going to go Marquise Goodwin. I don't think that will happen. That's my pick if I have to choose a surprise.
He seems so, I mean, he can't really help being healthy or not, but he seems so assured of his place, like it would be a real surprise.
I don't
But
want
you can
them
also
to.
see it because we haven't seen him play. So
And
it's
they have
like-
a weird numbers game at receiver right now.
And
Like a
similar
log
type.
jam of disappointing receivers, but that they still have hope for.
And let's be real, there's been other veterans that they've signed in the past that seem like they maybe had a role here and then they don't play in the preseason, or they barely play in the preseason and then they're out of here. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I thought BJ Finney was a lock of locks, but then he was traded for,
Right.
Artie Burns could be a surprise cut as well.
Yeah.
Like one,
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect him when they signed him to be cut, but they might just like their young guys, give him a shot elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you don't also know, like a player might be like, "Hey, could you please release me because I'm not a starter now, and I think I can start elsewhere."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The surprise cuts kind of already happened in that Iggy got cut, even though that
And-
wasn't a surprise based off his tape. But
And Ugo technically
yeah, they're good at they cut their losses pretty quick.
early.
Anyway, we'll find
right.
out in the next Seattle Overload. Thank you everyone for tuning into the live episode. I think this has gone quite well. Perhaps we can do it a bit more often. And please subscribe to my YouTube, which this is being broadcast on. Follow everyone on Twitter, not just me. It's being broadcast on my Twitter. And if you're listening to this after the fact on Spotify or Spreaker or Apple Podcasts or other podcast mediums, 5-star review, all that nice stuff.
Bro, it's
And-
top of the 11th still. 2-2.
Yeah, the Mariners had a runner on third, 1 out, and Ty France struck out on 3 pitches.
Yikes.
And you'll know what happened in the Mariners game if you're listening after. Right.
That's true. You will. And like the next 4 other Mariners games that are going to be played between now and the next Seattle Overload. Goodbye, folks. We love you. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.